Imagine for a second that you are a scientist, right?
Okay.
And you're trying to diagnose a localized collapse of reality.
Which is not a small task by any means.
Right, not a small task. Now, in a normal world, you would write this really dense, impenetrable academic paper, you'd submit it to a journal, and then you just wait.
You wait years, usually.
Exactly. You wait years for a panel of curators to peer review your findings.
Hmm.
But, and this is the premise of our deep dive today for you listening, what if you decided that the traditional system was just, too broken to process the cure?
What if you completely bypass the gatekeepers?
Exactly. What if, instead of a sterile lab report, you used a sprawling cinematic saga about a hero fighting multiversal demons to bypass those gatekeepers entirely?
It is such a wild concept.
It really is. So we are pulling from a really fascinating stack of materials today. We've got an April 14th, 2026 editorial update from Bibebibebibe magazine. We also have publication data from the Open Science Repository Zenodo, and a collection of cryptic lore from the Echo Rift archive, all centered on this figure named Saiku Venga.
Yeah, the lore is incredible.
So our mission today is to figure out exactly how this emerging framework, which is called Structured Multiversal Interactions, or SMI, how it functions as a serious diagnostic tool for understanding what its creators call reality collapse.
Because it is a remarkable collision of disciplines, right?
Yeah.
The creators are essentially weaponizing fiction to deliver highly complex system story.
Weaponizing fiction. I love that.
Yeah, because they're arguing that when a system's foundation is eroding, you just cannot use the system's own language to describe the problem.
Because the language itself is compromised.
Precisely. You need a completely new vocabulary.
And the real-world performance of this framework is just staggering to look at. Like, according to the update from Bibebibebibe magazine, within 24 hours of publication on April 14th, 4 SMI entries were archived on Zenodo.
Which is huge.
It is. And for you listening, Zenodo is an open access repository, right? It's normally used for raw research data. But almost instantly, these entries generated massive global research attention.
We're talking views, downloads, just a massive influx of data.
The whole 9 yards. People are clearly hungry for this.
Well, and the contrast is what makes this so telling. Because while the open index platforms are seeing this absolute frenzy of engagement, the creators' submissions to the traditional physics and philosophy community, they remain pending.
Still pending.
Yeah, the curators haven't accepted them yet.
Which paints a very specific and frankly hilarious picture of modern academia. Publishing these SMI entries on Zenodo feels like a rogue street artist throwing up a breathtaking, highly technical mural overnight.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, and the local community instantly recognizes its brilliance. The crowds gather, it goes totally viral. But meanwhile, the traditional physics and philosophy curators are acting like gallery bouncers.
Standing by the velvet rope with a clipboard.
Yes. Holding the clipboard, trying to check the artist's credentials, debating whether the paint chemistry aligns with their bylaws.
Well, everyone else is already looking at the art.
Exactly. The crowd has already decided the work matters, but the institution is just completely paralyzed by its own process.
Because the institution demands friction and verification,
Yeah.
Whereas the open index facilitates immediate flow.
Right.
And in a world dealing with rapidly accelerating crises, the demand for explanatory models just completely outpaces the speed of legacy institutions.
It's too slow.
Yeah. Bibebibebibe magazine actually celebrates this early traction. They call the SMI framework a living canon.
A living canon.
Yeah, which proves that a theoretical model can thrive and be stress-tested by a global audience entirely without institutional validation.
Wow. And, that concept of flow and friction brings us directly to the architect behind this whole project, Dr. Melvin Sewell.
Right, Dr. Sewell.
Who is listed as the academic dean and diagnostic architect of the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies IX, which is quite the title.
It's a heavy title, yeah.
Now, attached to all this framework is a very prominent sovereign diagnostic disclaimer. And just to be completely clear for you listening today, we are simply reporting the contents of this disclaimer impartially.
Yes. Very important point.
We aren't taking any sides or endorsing any specific political worldview here. We are just highlighting the creator's insistence on what their project is and what it isn't.
Right, and the creators are very meticulous about drawing that boundary. The disclaimer explicitly states that the content, including the Echo Rift films and the Sovereign Diagnostics, is not affiliated with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group.
So they are purposefully isolating it.
completely isolating the SMI framework from real-world political tribalism.
Okay, so they refer to these materials as mythic infrastructure, a cinematic indictment, and a sovereign broadcast.
Yes.
And the goal is to expose things like ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion. Let's pause and translate some of this jargon because it sounds really
It
heavy.
is dense, yeah. Let's unpack it.
So if I'm translating this into plain English, systemic erosion is essentially the slow decay we see around us every day, right? Institutions losing trust, infrastructure crumbling, communities fracturing.
Exactly, the slow collapse of the norm.
And ritualized containment is just a fancy way of describing how society silences whistleblowers or ignores inconvenient truths. It's the bureaucratic routine of sweeping systemic failure under the rug.
That is an excellent grounding of the terms.
Yeah.
I mean, what's fascinating here is that when a system is failing, it naturally develops rituals to contain anyone who actually points out the failure.
But here's where I get a little tripped up, I gotta be honest.
Okay, lay it on me.
If this project is strictly non-political and it's not affiliated with any real-world agency, how does a cinematic indictment practically function as a diagnostic tool? Like, are they claiming this sci-fi comic book lore is somehow an MRI scan for systemic erosion?
Well, in a way, yes. I mean, think about how human beings process raw data. Very poorly. If you hand a population a giant spreadsheet proving the slow decay of institutional trust over 20 years, people's eyes just glaze over.
Yeah, nobody's reading that.
Right. Data rarely changes deeply held paradigms. And worse, it almost instantly triggers political defensiveness.
Oh, totally. People retreat into their camps.
Exactly. But a mythic narrative completely bypasses those cognitive defenses.
Interesting.
It takes the invisible, complex reality of systemic erosion and it maps it onto tangible cinematic stakes. You create a diagnostic space where people can observe the mechanics of corruption and containment without their real-world biases getting in the way.
Because it's not about real-world politicians, it's about multiversal forces.
Yes, the fiction acts exactly like the contrast dye used in an MRI. It highlights the tumors in our actual social reality so we can finally see the shape of the disease.
Wow, you need the fiction to clearly see the truth. That makes a lot of sense.
It's brilliant, really.
And that brings us to the actual narrative manifestation of this framework, which is the lore from the Echo Rift archive centered on our main guy, Saiku Venga.
The anomaly himself.
Yeah. So the lore drops us right into his origin in Chapter 1. He emerges from a rift, and he's born exactly between two opposing cosmic forces called slip flow and counterflow.
And this positioning is absolutely critical to the whole framework. Slip flow represents momentum, coherence, progression.
Like things working the way they should.
Exactly. Counterflow, on the other hand, is regression, chaos, and the automated pushback of a decaying system.
Okay, so Saiku exists right in the friction point between the two.
It does.
To visualize this for you listening, imagine being the only entity trying to walk perpendicular across a crushing, high-speed cosmic highway.
Oh, that's a terrifying image.
Right. Everyone else is moving with the flow or against it, and you're just getting completely battered from both sides because you were trying to step out of the traffic entirely.
And the lore shows the immediate cost of this existence in Chapter 2. Saiku is marked by something called the SH1 resonance.
Right. The symbols.
Yeah, the text describes how power and pain intertwine as these SH1 symbols physically burn into his skin.
Which binds him to something ancient, right?
Yes. And this physical branding is a visceral metaphor for Dr. Sewell's concept of ritualized containment.
How so?
Well, being a diagnostic tool is not a painless superpower. When a system is experiencing friction and erosion, it actively tries to contain or expel the entity registering that friction.
So the system attacks the messenger.
Exactly. Saiku carries the weight of systemic failure on his own body. The burning symbols are the physical and psychological toll of perceiving reality collapse when the rest of the world is just numbly going along with the flow.
Man, it's like a dashboard warning light that physically burns your skin when the engine of reality overheats.
That's exactly it. You just can't ignore it.
You can't. But surviving that friction requires a specific tool set, which is where the lore gets surprisingly technical. Like, Saiku doesn't just swing a magical sword.
No, not at all.
In Chapter 3, he relies on an analyzer HUD, like a heads-up display. And the truth it reveals to him is terrifying. It says, coherence is failing, collapse probability is rising, and danger is approaching.
And the language they use here is so deliberate.
Very analytical.
Right. Coherence failing, collapse probability rising. It strips away the mystical fantasy element and grounds the narrative strictly in systems theory and data analysis.
So the HUD is translating mythic danger into measurable telemetry.
Yes, precisely.
And to combat this rising probability of collapse, Chapter 4 introduces the arc formations.
The ritual.
Yeah, it's a highly specific 5-stage ritual that Saiku must execute. The stages are resonance, geometry, correction, intent, and finally, the deployment of the slip flow edge.
It's very structured.
That's what I thought. When I first read this, I mean, here's where it gets really interesting. It struck me as incredibly procedural.
Oh, for sure.
This doesn't sound like a battle cry at all. Is this essentially a rigorous scientific method disguised as a mystical battle ritual? Is this the structured part of the structured multiversal interactions framework?
Yes, absolutely. You nailed it. They are taking the abstract concept of fighting a corrupted system and breaking it down into an actionable algorithm.
I really want to test this out.
That's good.
If we pull this out of the sci-fi lore and apply it to a real-world scenario, let's say an investigative journalist is trying to expose a massive toxic cover-up in a local government.
Okay, great example.
How does this 5-stage arc formation actually map onto diagnosing and fighting an actual societal issue?
Let's run it through the algorithm. So stage 1 is resonance. The journalist has to first detect the anomaly. They sense that the official public reports just don't match the reality of what the citizens are experiencing.
Right, they tune into the friction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then stage 2 is geometry. You don't just blindly attack the mayor.
You get crushed.
Right. You map the spatial and structural reality of the crisis. Who reports to whom? Where is the money flowing? You basically map the architecture of the cover-up.
Okay, so then stage 3 is correction. The journalist calculates the exact adjustment needed to restore balance. Like, they identify the specific buried document or the single suppressed testimony that will break the false narrative.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which leads directly to stage 4, which is intent.
The psychological part.
Yes. The journalist must apply conscious, focused will, knowing that releasing this information is going to trigger the system's automated defenses against them.
They have to mentally commit to the disruption because the blowback is coming.
Oh, absolutely. And finally, stage 5 deployment, the actual execution of the tool, hitting publish on the article.
Wow.
That is the slip flow edge slicing through the corrupted narrative.
That completely demystifies the framework for me. I mean, by treating a mythic battle as a precise 5-step diagnostic correction, the authors are forcing us to realize that surviving institutional collapse isn't about, like, hoping for a savior.
Right. It's not magic.
No. It is about applied structural geometry and intent. It's an algorithm for surviving chaos.
But, and this is a big, but as Chapter 5 of the lore makes very clear, the chaos fights back.
Oh, does it ever? Reality itself is the predator?
Yes. The multiversal threats hunting Saiku are given specific names. You've got counterflow mimics, coherence predators, and null-flow pockets.
And again, if we anchor these sci-fi terms to our daily lives, they are just instantly recognizable.
Oh, completely.
Counterflow mimics are the bad faith actors, the deep fakes, the algorithmic bots designed to look like organic opposition just to confuse you.
Right.
Coherence predators are the forces that actively destroy our ability to share a basic common truth. And null flow pockets.
Those are the worst.
Yeah, those are the algorithmic echo chambers, places where forward momentum ceases entirely and you are trapped in a stagnant void of your own recycled opinions.
They are the automated immune response of a dying system. And Saiku's method for fighting these forces in Chapter 6 is brutal.
He uses the true flow force, right?
Yes. The text describes it as chains of crackling cosmic energy that bend the multiverse. But it comes at a severe cost.
Because it hurts him.
Exactly. The lore explicitly states that his own coherence shatters with every pulse of this power.
And this leads to a moment in Chapter 7 where I have to push back on the framework's hero narrative here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because Saiku finds himself surrounded by failed versions of himself, right? And all this corrupted data. And he realizes that he is the anomaly the multiverse fears.
Right?
So if Saiku bends reality using true flow force and it shatters his own coherence, leaving a trail of corrupted data, isn't he actually validating the multiverse's fear?
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
Right. He's introducing massive instability.
Yeah.
To the system, he is the virus causing systemic erosion. So why shouldn't the system try to eliminate him?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the ultimate paradox of the anomaly. And it's exactly the tension the framework wants to highlight. Yeah. You have to look at it from the perspective of systemic health. A truly healthy, coherent system wouldn't have a slip flow and counterflow friction point in the first place.
Ah, I see.
The very fact that Psy-Q exists, the fact that the SH1 resonance is burning on his skin, proves the system is already failing.
So he isn't causing the disease. He's just the violent side effect of the cure.
Exactly. To diagnose and fight a collapsing status quo, you must introduce friction. You have to break the existing corrupted rules.
Because following the rules just maintains the corruption.
Right. To the system's automated defenses, Psy-Q registers as a threat because systems prioritize stability over truth. He shatters his own coherence because you cannot decouple yourself from the reality you are trying to save.
You're in the mess with it.
Yes, the corrupted data surrounding him is just the necessary exhaust of the diagnostic process. Trial, error, and failure are the only ways to map an unknown collapse. He disrupts the system not to destroy it, but to prevent its quiet, invisible slide into total, irreversible failure.
Wow. He has to become the friction to stop the slide. That is a profound way to look at whistleblowers or activists, or really anyone pushing back against a decaying norm.
They always look like chaos to the people benefiting from the quiet decay.
They really do. And that framing perfectly sets up the final piece of lore we have from Chapter 8, the final panel. It's this striking image of Psy-Q standing defiant in a collapsing slip-flow corridor.
Oh, it's such a powerful image.
And his final declaration is, if the multiverse wants me gone, it can try harder.
It is the ultimate rejection of ritualized containment. I mean, he's refusing to be managed or silenced or erased by a system that has lost its structural integrity.
And this is exactly why diving into the stack of sources matters so much for you listening today.
Absolutely.
We aren't just parsing the plot of a sci-fi comic or evaluating some rogue academic paper parked on Zenodo. The structured multiversal interactions framework is a lens for how you process the overwhelming friction of modern life.
We are all dealing with it.
We are. You are navigating your own slip-flow corridors. When you deal with decaying trust in your institutions, when you spot deepfakes online or get trapped in an echo chamber, the friction you feel isn't just stress.
No, it's a diagnostic signal.
Exactly. It might be your own SH1 resonance acting up, trying to warn you that the engine of reality around you is overheating.
And the creators have basically given us a vocabulary to map our own reality collapse. But stepping back from the immediate mechanics of arc formations and counterflow, there's a broader implication here that we haven't touched on yet.
What's that?
If raw data fails to change minds, which we know it does, and we genuinely need mythic infrastructure to process systemic trauma, what does that mean for the future of how we heal?
Oh, wow.
Imagine a near future where psychologists don't just prescribe coping mechanisms or medication for the anxiety of living in a fractured world. What if they begin prescribing the construction of personal mythologies?
Like writing your own lore to survive.
Exactly. What if the ultimate therapy for surviving an era of coherence predators is learning how to author your own cinematic indictment, turning your daily friction into a rigorous 5-stage diagnostic tool?
That is incredible to think about.
In a world that constantly tries to overwrite your reality, building your own mythic framework might be the only way to ensure your coherence outlasts the collapse. So, what is your personal analyzer HUD telling you right now? And when the coherence around you starts failing, will you try to blend into the counterflow, or will you stand your ground and risk being the anomaly?